important to me. And my big goal in this industry was to see how I could use storytelling in games. And when I started 15 years ago, I often heard that storytelling and interactivity were two things that would never go together. Because storytelling is linear, where interactivity is non-linear. And I tried to see if it was true, if there was really no way to make these two things work together, or if it was possible. So this is what we're going to talk about today. The idea of this conference also came from a conversation I had with a colleague of mine. We were doing a conference together. He was working on a racing game. And I was pretending that there was storytelling even in racing games. And he was saying, well, of course not, it's just a racing game, and the goal is to arrive first. There is no story there. And his conclusion was, David, the issue with you is that you see storytelling everywhere. And yeah, that's true, actually. I see storytelling everywhere. So I started wondering, is storytelling just in books? Is it just in films? Or is it really everywhere? Is it in our lives? Are our lives storytelling, in a way? A famous painter said that we are all someone else's story, which is a very, very nice line that I really like. So I try to wonder, is storytelling really everywhere? When you think about how storytelling started, you may say that it probably started with religion and myth and legends. And why did we invent legends? Probably because there was a time where fear, night, death were very scary things. Well, they are still today, but we needed to invent stories to reassure ourselves, and most of all to give meaning to all these things. It's one thing to see someone dying, and it's really sad, but at the same time, if you believe that he's going to survive and he's going to join God in the clouds and something great will happen to him, it makes things more acceptable in a way. So the first use of storytelling was really to give meaning, to avoid pain or limit pain, and really give meaning to what happens. The Greeks started talking about storytelling. They have very different takes on that. Plato, for example, thought that storytelling was something very dangerous, because storytelling was conveying values, but at the same time there were a lie. It was not the truth, it was a version of the truth. And Plato thought that if storytelling was conveying the wrong values, it could have a very negative influence on people. So he wanted actors and writers out of the city. He really didn't trust them at all, and they called them liars. But Aristotle had a different take. He said, yes, storytelling can convey values, but at the same time, these values can be very positive, and they can be used to educate citizens. So it's something very important, on the contrary, that should absolutely be used. And then I continue to explore, where is storytelling? Well, you could say that storytelling is in painting. This is the moment where Napoleon became emperor. And this is a very famous painting from Jean-Louis David, painter. And it's a story in itself. There is the Pope. Napoleon takes the crown from the Pope and puts it himself on the head of his wife. This is a story by itself. This is propaganda. This is a way to use storytelling in painting to promote political ideas. So that's another use. This is another very famous picture from Douaneau, which is a very famous photographer. And this is about Paris after war. It's two people kissing. It's one of his most famous pictures. Two people kissing after war, after the Second World War in Paris. And it was all about telling how life would start again, how love would overcome war and horror. Bob Dylan is just a singer. What's the point? Well, what's the link with storytelling? Well, his songs are about telling stories. This is how he became so popular, because he's telling about the life of people in the US and in the world. So that's what made him so unique. And of course, theater is, as you know, about storytelling too. So that's fine. Okay, we saw that photographers, painters, and writers in theater use storytelling. That's what we were expecting. Now let's try to see a different use of storytelling in commercials. Does commercial writers, do they use storytelling to convey their message? I'm sorry about sound, I'll do my best, but this is a very old commercial from the 50s, from a very, for a famous brand of drinks.
Everyone knows the importance of taking a break every once in a while when you're working. Well, the same thing holds true if you're having fun. Now, that's why plays have intermissions. And during the intermission, you'll find the nearby fountain where they serve Coca-Cola is a mighty popular place. A sparkling glass of ice-cold Coke is a sparkling addition to the festivity, the excitement of opening night. Coke has a bright flavor, a distinctive flavor, all its own, that has never been equaled. It's bracing, too.
Okay, you got the idea. Very boring. It's really, hey, drink Coke. Look, it's good taste and good color, and if you want to have fun, just drink Coke. They promoted the product. That's the first age of commercials. Then came the second age. Second age was about brands. I don't tell you that Coke is a good taste. I'm just telling you that Coke is cool, which is a different thing. But now commercials, they are at the third age, which is the age of storytelling. So this is same product 50 years later, and this is how they promote Coke today. Different, huh? They use storytelling only. They didn't tell you that drinking Coke was cool or that Coke as a brand was cool. They told you a story. And the story was used to convey values. And that's very interesting. When you see this, it made you smile, made you spend a good time. Maybe you'll talk to your friends about it and you'll convey, without knowing, Coke's values. So this is also how storytelling is used today and how it's a part of our lives. So commercials, fine, but politics. They use more and more storytellers. The most famous storytellers of all time is probably George W. Bush. And he has a great hit with his mass destruction weapons. It's probably his best story. He made the whole world laugh. And a couple of people die, unfortunately, because of a story. So it's really powerful. What I want to say is that politicians, they use storytellers, they call them spin doctors. And it's the same thing that with Coke. Instead of telling you, you should do this or you should do that, let me tell you a story that will make you conclude on your own what you're supposed to do for me or what you're supposed to do for the nation. So again, it's not just about conveying values. It's about conveying emotions and ideas in a more subtle way, probably, than just telling you things. Sports is my favorite form of storytelling. I mean, the best story I know is this game during World Cup in Spain between France and Germany in football. It was an amazing story. We lost in the end. I was 12 when I saw that, and it's still something that is really there. It was the most incredible story you can think of. What I love about sports is that no one knows what's going to happen. There is no writer, there is no director. The actors themselves, they don't know what's going to happen. So everybody discovers and tells a story in a procedural way. So that's really something I think is unique. So you got it. Storytelling is everywhere in our lives. It's of course in movies, it's in books, it's in theater, but it's probably in education, it's in commercials, it's in art in general. And to answer the question of my colleague at the beginning, I was saying storytelling everywhere. My answer is yes, I see storytelling everywhere because I think storytelling is everywhere. So let's talk about games, because this is what you came for. What about storytelling in games? If storytelling is in our lives, is it also in our games? Everything started very well in this relationship between stories and games with text-based adventure games. And one of them is Zork, one of the most famous ones. And it was a very interesting start because it was basically about creating an interactive book. You were typing whatever you wanted to do or to see, and you had the text telling you what happened. And this is to be honest, this is the very primitive form of Heavy Rain. Heavy Rain was really inspired by this, just putting 3D images on top of it, but the idea behind it is really similar. And then troubles started. It started with the first graphic games, and suddenly we came from something that was quite sophisticated, actually, with these text-based adventures, to something that was probably simpler, but more visual, and definitely more accessible. So you had this space shuttle, and you had to shoot at different enemies, and the story became very simple. It has not disappeared, the story is still there, but it's not the main focus. The most focus is much more what you do on a second-to-second basis rather than who you are, where you come from, where you want to go, what will happen to you. It was much more about this is what I'm doing now. And the same trend continued through the years until today. Donkey Kong, same idea, very simple story. I'm this little guy and there is this monster and he kidnapped the princess and I need to save the princess. Okay, that's the story. That's the story. What matters is not so much the story, it's what I'm going to do. And what I'm going to do is running, climbing ladders, use a hammer, jump, and that's pretty much the game. Then came Doom. I can't tell you the story, honestly, I don't have a clue. But I guess it's about saving something or killing someone, I don't know. And then came Mario Kart. Mario Kart is very interesting, it's a racing game. But I think, my personal theory is that what made Mario Kart so popular was the story. Because the creators were very clever and they did something incredible. If you're the first one, you're a little bit slower than the people following you. So they have a chance. There are more chances to become first and to reach the line before you, but at the same time, once you become second, you become a little bit faster again. So what they did by that was creating an engine for story. When you talk about your race with your friends, you can tell them, hey, you remember, I was first and then you become second, but then I ended just winning the race at the last second. They generate story with a very simple mechanics. So let's talk about that was games from the past. Let's see how games evolved through the years.